Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. David here. I hope everyone's having a great day today. Today we're going to be talking about MCU team-ups that I want to happen and how I think these smaller scale team-ups will become more common to the rest of the MCU titles going forward over bigger Avenger films. So during the early days of the MCU, when seeds were just being planted and solo films were exactly that, solo films, stories that didn't really include anyone but our singular hero aside from a few side characters and their singular problem they're having to deal with, and then they get the help from these supporting casts. Films I'm primarily talking about are movies that are going to be, for the most part, from Phase 1. There's obviously some new solo films from the future phases that introduced us to new heroes, so we kind of had to redo that formula, such as like Captain Marvel or Ant-Man. But the movies I'm primarily talking about are Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. Basically the first installment solo films. Now that we're seeing, and I think we'll keep seeing, what I'm going to call the MCU team-ups in the future of the MCU titles. An obvious reference to like the Marvel team-up series that first premiered in, I think, 1972, where they had like characters such as Spider-Man team up with one or two other characters from the Marvel Universe featured all in one story. And they did this with a couple other characters. I think like Hulk was the main character, and then he had team ups. I think even Spider-Man's like aunt even had one as well. Like there's been a couple, but Spider-Man was the primary team up leader, I guess you could say. And then they would always pair him with characters like Doctor Strange or Shang-Chi or anything like that. But we've seen it done so somewhat in the MCU with Thor Ragnarok. How Thor Ragnarok used Hulk, Thor, and Valkyrie kind of like as a singular team, or as they called them, the Revengers.
So I'm saying that I want to be on the team. Has it got a name?
It's called the Revengers.
Revengers?
And as well as in Captain America and Winter Soldier with Captain America, Black Widow, and Falcon, how they're just this collective unit. And I guess you could even kind of mention Iron Man 2 because Black Widow is in that as well, and Happy, I guess you could say. But it seems like they're only going to explore the idea further with upcoming projects. Multiverse of Madness is going to feature Doctor Strange, Wanda, American Chavez, probably the Wanda's kids, Tommy and Billy, Speed and Wiccan, and then obviously the villain the guy from the last movie who is now a villain because he doesn't want any more wizards and sorcerers, which is weird. I'm curious how that plot is going to work into the multiverse plot. I don't know. Really confusing stuff. No Way Home is gonna apparently feature more than one Spider-Man if the rumors are true, and a Daredevil. But I've heard rumors that it's only gonna be a lawyer Daredevil. But I guess we'll just wait and see on that. And then Shang-Chi, as we saw in the most recent trailer, it's gonna have Wong and Abomination cameos. Looks like during the tournament scenes in Madripoor. Thor: Love and Thunder will feature Thor, Jane Foster as female Thor, the Guardians, Valkyrie, and who knows who else will show up in this movie. Honestly, the casting is pretty nuts. But my point that I'm trying to get at is I feel like Marvel Studios are trying to make all MCU projects going forward feel like smaller events, not necessarily on an in-game level, but by having multiple characters appearing in each other's movies, which I'm all here for. I think it's an amazing idea. I love the idea. It's always great to see how certain characters would be like when they're around another character, kind of like in Infinity War when we got to see the Guardians interact with Iron Man and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. But I wonder if Marvel decided to go this route to tell their multiverse saga instead of us just getting a bunch of films with their own individual stories and then 4 Avenger films all in like a span of 10 years. We will get these big event movies like Avengers movies, I'm sure, but now with these like smaller scale event, like with these, I don't want to say smaller scale, I feel like I'm insulting them, but the events are going to be much more occurring in more movies, like big like MCU changing events is what I'm trying to get at, and I could be wrong. But I'm sure that it will be Avengers films like one day, because right now the Avengers aren't really a thing right now, and I wonder who will lead them and who will rally them together. Will it be Fury? Will it be Val? Will it be Sam Wilson? Who will it be? You know,
I could lead them.
But with an obvious Young Avenger line and Thunderbolts potentially happening with Val and John Walker and Yelena and potentially even Abomination, which I kind of am predicting that they're going to show in the post-credit scene for Shang-Chi.
But this is a whole new level of weird. Things are about to get weird.
I'm sure that there are some unannounced films that are in the works. Kind of like how in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, after it was done, similarly we found out about a fourth Captain America film with Sam Wilson as Captain America in the works, but it wasn't announced at any other date till then, which makes sense. We also have a ton of new heroes coming into the MCU, such as Shang-Chi, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, Blade, just so many possibilities. I can't wait to see what they get these characters into. And I'm just curious, like, if they are going to keep doing what I'm kind of suggesting is if they're going to do these MCU team-ups where they, instead of just having a solo film where they deal with their solo problems, they're going to be in their project, but they're going to be fighting alongside other MCU heroes as well. And I don't want you guys to think that that's me thinking they're going to take away from their individual stories that they need to tell or they want to tell with these characters just because they want to see MCU characters teamed up together. I still think they're still going to do that, and they may not necessarily be full-on team-ups, but they're definitely just going to be more cameos in these movies, I think. And I think it's a really good idea. I think it brings a much more connection to the overall universe of the MCU and makes it feel more connected to where you do remember that all of this is together, which you should by now. Obviously, it's been 10 years. But I hope you guys are kind of understanding what I mean by that. But now I've got to know, guys, what MCU team up do you want to see in the future of the MCU? I have a laundry list of team ups I personally like to see. But I'm just gonna ramble off a few here and maybe a little bit of a reasoning why. But I think I'd like to see, my first one I have on my list is Spider-Man and Shang-Chi. I have no general reason for this. I just think it would be cool to see a Spider-Man and Shang-Chi kind of fighting combo. I think with him being such a martial artist. And maybe, I don't know, Spider-Man could swing him around with his webs and he can fight. Or even if he has some, like maybe 5 of the rings or some of the rings after the movie Shang-Chi, then maybe he can use those in tangent with Spider-Man's webs. And I just think it'd be cool. And I think so far from the personality of Shang-Chi from the trailer, I just think that their personalities would get along really great. And I just think it would also be cool to see how Spider-Man would react to Shang-Chi using his rings. I think it'd be really funny. And then another one I have on my list is Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. We already got a little bit of a team up with them when they met up in Infinity War with the famous lines from Spider-Man where he says, "I'm Spider-Man." And Stephen Strange, he's like, "Oh, we're using our superheroes' names. Then I am Spider-Man." A really funny moment. And he calls him, like, the wizard and all these really funny things. It just really shows like the adolescence and how much of a kid Peter Parker is in the MCU. So it's going to be interesting to see how they team up in No Way Home, because it is confirmed that Doctor Strange will make an appearance there, and I'm curious why he's going to be there. I'm sure it's going to be because the whole MCU multiverse thing that's going on right now. But my question is, if the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield stuff in that is accurate, why do they need them in there? I feel like Doctor Strange would be enough to handle any Sinister Six villain, but I don't know. Maybe he's going to have his hands full with the multiverse thing. That's probably why. Let's moving on. Another one I have on my list is going to be Rocket and War Machine. So we've seen them kind of interact. If you remember the battle of Endgame, you'll see Rocket sitting on the shoulder of War Machine with his big gun, and then whenever they're doing the charging scene with the Avengers Assemble scene, you see War Machine flying with Rocket sitting on his back, and I think that is so cool. I think it's awesome to see them together because War Machine has this beautiful arsenal of weapons in his suit, and Rocket, that's what he's all about. He's all about weaponry and creating different weapons with different gadgets and techs and junk, and I would just love to see what kind of stuff that they could get in together. I think a series of them would be great. I think Don Cheadle would complement Bradley Cooper's perfect Rocket acting. Another one. This one's probably one of my most favorite ones. Captain America and Ant-Man. But the Captain America I'm talking about is Sam Wilson, not Steve Rogers. And I think it'd be really funny because if you remember when Sam Wilson and Ant-Man first met, it was when Ant-Man was trying to break into the Avengers campus, and he was trying to steal something for Hank Pym so they could do their mission. And and Sam Wilson finds him, and they're fighting, and he's, he gets his ass whooped by Ant-Man, unfortunately, and he says over his, I guess, communicator, Let's not tell anybody about this. So the fact that he gets his ass beat is really funny to me, and I think it would be really funny to see how they would react to each other now that Sam Wilson is Captain America, because Ant-Man was almost like an ass kisser for Steve Rogers.
I think you look great, Cap. As far as I'm concerned, that's America's ass.
In all of his appearances with him. I think it'd be really funny, and I'm curious if he would look up to Sam Wilson as much as he would Steve Rogers. But let's go to the next one. Blade and Spider-Man. This one, I just want to see it because I think it'd be cool to see them fight Morbius. That's honestly it. I think it'd be really cool to introduce Blade and Spider-Man fighting Morbius. I just think it'd be a blast. Let's go to the next one. I think Doctor Strange and Blade would be cool too, just because I want them to get into that corner of the MCU where they deal with the supernatural, like maybe get into the Ghost Rider, into hell and demons and vampires and werewolves and just the weird. I want to get into the weird of the MCU. And then finally, I have She-Hulk and Daredevil. So I've heard theories that Daredevil could potentially even show up in the She-Hulk Disney Plus series, which would be really cool. But I'm thinking they would be a really cool matchup just because they're both lawyers. They're both superheroes. They're both lawyers. And I've actually read a couple comics where Daredevil does take on the Hulk and he gets his ass beat. But I just think it's an interesting combination. A blind vigilante hero going up against a massively strong creature. I just think it's a very interesting parallel. It's like a mouse and an elephant, you know? But I think that with them both being lawyers, I would love to see how they would interact in a courtroom. I'd like to see maybe, Matt Murdock on one side of the room and then She-Hulk on the other. You know, they're working the same case, but they're, representing different clients. I think that'd be so cool. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like, what MCU team-ups do you want to see in the MCU? Please leave them down in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of video. It's something I really think about all the time, and I just wanted to share this experience with you and have fun, hearing what team-ups you guys want to see. So please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. See ya!